History of philosophy, the love of wisdom, a conversation of thoughts, and a river of different perspectives. Wisdom of the cross is at the root of Christian philosophy. Secular philosophy is not necessarily theistic. A brief overview shows that it's the handmaid of theology, and priests major in college in philosophy to prepare for religious studies. Faith and reason are two different aspects of viewing the world. Martin Luther discouraged the use of reason, and Kierkegaard said that it's a leap of faith. But John Paul has a letter where faith and reason are two wings on which the human spirit soars. The biggest brushstroke of the history of philosophy is being, which is metaphysics, and then the movement towards knowledge with Descartes, which is called epistemology, and language is the current era of the historical movement. Socratic method, Peter Kreeft has a series, Socrates meets Kierkegaard, Socrates meets Immanuel Kant, and Machiavelli, Jean-Paul Sartre, Sigmund Freud. These are different dialogues. And the way that we know about Socrates is from his disciple Plato, who wrote down the dialogues. There is there are a lot of philosophers, so let me know in the comments which one you want me to expand upon. The 8 or 9 eras are the pre-Socratic, before Socrates, then the 4th century BC with Plato and Aristotle, and then the Roman period was Stoicism, and then medieval with Augustine and Aquinas. Continental rationalism was after the Renaissance with Descartes, I think, therefore I am. He had dualism between the body and the soul, and had a radical doubt where he wasn't sure anything existed except the fact that he thought, therefore he knows at least that much. Immanuel Kant in continental philosophy with Hegel, Schopenhauer, and Kierkegaard. Karl Marx, Nietzsche, who was, some of these philosophers are systematic and others are commentators. And Nietzsche was a commentator. He was almost poetic at times. the phenomenology of Husserl, Heidegger, and Sartre, and then Edith Stein and Pope John Paul looked at phenomenology as a way of letting go of biases and trying to bracket experience and meaning. And then pragmatism with William James and Dewey, Russell with mathematics, and Wittgenstein with emphasis on language. The final epic is American philosophy. Emerson, Thoreau, Josiah Royce, and Stanley Hauerwas examined community of character and meaning, purpose of life, the absolute. There was a preacher named Jonathan Edwards who has a famous sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, which is showing the importance of ethics. And speaking of ethics, after Aristotle's examination of the moral life, MacIntyre calls it after virtue, and he says the Enlightenment project failed. The Enlightenment project was a historical intellectual movement emphasizing reason, individualism, and progress. 18th century secular shift away from traditional authority towards scientific inquiry. Names like John Locke, Immanuel Kant, Rousseau, and Voltaire. The Eurocentric totalitarian politics were some negative aspects of the project, and this small book says living faithfully in a fragmented world, taking lessons from MacIntyre's Aristotelian ethics. The philosopher that was a Christian besides Anselm, who had a proof for God's existence, and Aquinas, who had 5 ways of proving God, is Soren Kierkegaard, who reacted to Hegel. He mocked in vignettes like the following: if you marry, you will regret it. If you do not marry, you will also regret it. Whether you marry or do not marry, you will regret both. Laugh at the world's follies, you will regret it. Weep over them, you will regret that. And he said it's either or. And this is a comic book history of philosophy. And Hegel had a dialectic of history involving a thesis, antithesis, and a synthesis. Now, Aristotle's logic says you can't have A and not A at the same time. It's the principle of non-contradiction. And Hegel ignored that, but Kierkegaard, in his famous writing Either Or, said we have to make decisions, and the meaning in life, especially Christian life, depends on our faith decisions, and our moral equipment needs to follow logic, unlike Hegel. Incidentally, German idealism and Karl Marx took a bad turn from this particular philosophy. I think I covered everything for now. As I mentioned, current philosophy is examining language with Wittgenstein and logical positivism. I could say a lot more about the individual philosophers. There's a spiritual writings of Kierkegaard that became known as existentialism, and it took an atheistic turn with Jean-Paul Sartre, unfortunately a French philosopher who led hundreds of students astray. When priests are studying philosophy in college for religious studies, they have to be careful to strengthen their faith and not allow it to be jeopardized by some of the philosophers like David Hume or Hobbes, who has a book called Leviathan, the social contract theory is part of John Locke's Enlightenment project that he was working on. That should cover. There's also utilitarianism with Bentham and Mill, and Heidegger has Being and Time.